Hey guys, my name is Peter Murphy Lewis, the host of LTC Heroes, and in today's episode, I'm going to show you something very special. It's my experience of working for the first time in a long-term care organization and all the things that I learned. Stay tuned. Tell me what you think in the comments below. I went to a long-term care organization called Care Centers in East Wichita, Kansas. I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was about a 40-minute drive. I had to be there at 6:15, cold Kansas. So November 2021, get up and I'm wearing my scrubs. And for anyone who is not from the US, working in healthcare is an admirable profession. So putting on scrubs, I felt like I was stepping into a profession that people appreciate and admire in my home country. Justifiably, I was afraid of potentially letting someone fall. I know that the biggest risk for residents in long-term care are falls. So I was nervous if I would know how to use my gait belt. There's rules about how to use a gait belt. Some of the things I was nervous about would be the person who I would shadow, if they would be helpful, if they would have a short temper, if they would explain things to me, if they would incorporate me, if they would involve me in the process. That was a little bit exaggerated. My instructor, Brittany, who introduced me to Robert right away, she had already talked about how great Robert is as a CNA in long-term care. She talked about it in my classes in my first 2 weeks. So when she told me that I was going to be paired up with Robert and I was going to be paired up with my classmate Caitlin, I knew that I was being set up for success. At 6:39, I am showering and waking up my first resident. I'll call him Mr. D, just to be respectful of his privacy. But Mr. D and I and Liz went straight in the shower, and Robert said, "Peter, the best thing that you can do is you can dive right in." And Mr. D says to me as we're getting him out of bed in the Hoyer lift, "Peter, you're lucky you get to see my beautiful body." And, like that makes you relax. You're going to shower a person who can't move and you're going to put them into a certain type of shower chair. And, of course, you do all of the normal precautions, gloves, but you get wet. And he was making jokes the whole time. So he made it extremely comfortable. In my first 30 minutes of working as a trainee, shadowing, I showered and helped clean a BM and put on a brief. Luckily, it was with the happiest, most helpful resident at Care Centers. My first day, I probably washed my hand in an 8-hour shift 100 times and use instant hand wash 200 times coming out of every single room. And you're using 3 pairs of gloves when you change a brief or anyone has a BM. So I put on 300 pair of gloves. I'm walking around in my scrubs. I have 5 pairs of gloves here and 5 pairs of gloves here. And sometimes you come home and you forget to take them out. So my shower at home, my 5-year-old is playing with gloves that made it home in my scrubs. If I would evaluate how hard my first day was, I would say emotionally, 1 being easiest, 10 being hardest, I would say a 3. Physically, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's a 10. I did not sit 1 single time, except for 2 times when I was feeding residents. There was no resting. It is the hardest work that I have ever done. On the psychological scale, so not emotional, psychological, of kind of demanding, scale of 1 to 10, how hard was it? I would say it's a 5, because there were 2 or 3 residents who were quite independent, quite autonomous. And a couple of them were very demanding. They treat you like you are a waiter. Today, going in, I felt a lot more comfortable and even more excited. I was excited about working with Robert. I was excited that out of 26 residents in my hall, I thought that I'd learned 15 names. I was excited that I knew where things were. I woke up this morning excited. It started off a little bit slower than it did on day 1. But the main thing we started running is getting people out of bed, going and waking them up gently, telling them, hey, in about 20 minutes, we're going to come pick them up. We're going to change their brief if necessary, and then take them out to breakfast. And Robert today showed me how to chart, which are ADLs, active daily living. So those are things that we would go through on our EHR and click on them. And I started to understand what it meant to document, what it means to chart. There were moments today where I started to understand the industry. So I understand my role between CNA, CMA, certified medical aid, and then LPN. So CNAs are the eyes and ears on the ground for the medical team. We need to pay attention if their weight goes down, if their personality has changed, if they seem down, if they seem extra high, extra motivated, if they're more autonomous. The other thing that makes me really admire Robert and the facility that I was working at is when I was working with Mr. P in the morning, I heard someone on the outside saying, I'm not going to write you up today, but if I come back to this hall tomorrow and I find a brief on the ground or gloves on the ground, you're getting written up. When I was finished there, I went down. I said, Robert, I said, they're going to come down here. They're writing up a lot of people. And he goes, I love it. He goes, I love it when our facility enforces best practices of long-term care. He says, it makes my job easier. It's better for the residents. It made me realize, one, I was in a good facility. Two, the person that I was shadowing was, a diamond in the rough. Physically, I said on day one that it was a 10. Today was a 12. I hurt my back. I forgot to raise the bed. Within an hour into my shift, my back hurt so bad that I really thought that there was a chance that I was going to have to quit working that day. That's how bad it hurt. Now, I will take care of my back much better on day 3 than I did today. Like I said last time, emotionally, day 1 was like a 3 or 5. I would say today was a 10 when I was frustrated with the call pad lights, with the person who spilled cranberry juice on Mr. P. But then it was a 1 when I went and got comforted by Robert and said, hey, the person who's coming around and writing us up is doing us a favor and we're doing good for the residents. So I would say like high up here, difficult emotionally and psychologically, and then everything got easier when I just went and talked to my supervisor, who made me realize that this place is unique. Finished. Day 3 of clinicals, my last day of clinicals at Catholic Care. It was as amazing as I could have imagined. Going in this morning, I felt full of energy. I knew that I had to take my final exam before my last day of clinicals. I just got up at 3:45. At 5:15, I was taking my final exam. I finished it at 6 o'clock. I found out that I passed because it's an automatic recording. I ran to the car, got to the clinicals. I got there at 6:28. Well, today I knew that it was going to be a little bit different than my first 2 days for a couple different reasons. One is Robert was off today. 2 is my new supervisor was going to be Rose. And, just everybody has a different speed and a different way that they explain things. So I was going to have to get to know her flow. I just knew that today was going to be particularly more emotional as well, because I was not going to see Mr. P again, who was one of my favorites to help. I was also going to have to say goodbye to Caitlin, my classmate. Today it seemed slower than other days. And it's not that I think that it was slower. It's that I think I knew how to do things more efficiently. Today, as I mentioned, I took care of my back. I drank tons of water, even though I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was exhausted. Took care of my own back. I raised the bed higher than ever. My back did not hurt today. My feet did not hurt today. There was another student who showed up for her first day, and she was from a nurse's aide class at Wichita State. And I immediately tried to help her because I knew how nervous I felt on day 1. I knew how nervous she must be. I told her when to get in, and she was feeding right away. She was feeding at breakfast time. So I think while I passed my exam, now I only have a state exam, I think that I'm ready to be a CNA. The biggest things that I still don't have a lot of practice on are vitals. At the facility I was at, we had enough help that a lot of time the vitals could be checked by somebody else. So I don't know if I would be good at, blood pressure and pulse and respiration and oxygen yet. I'm sure that when I apply for my first position to work as a CNA in my onboarding, I will tell them that, hey, I need some more practice on this. Can you help me? They need us. So if I go to someone and say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this when they're interviewing me, it's not that they're going to shoo me away. They need me. So they're going to take the time. They're definitely going to teach me. Caitlin asked me, she said, Peter, how's Mrs. K? Why is her door closed? Mrs. K's name had been taken off. She passed the day beforehand. I said, she passed. And, Caitlin had the same reaction I did, like, whoa. In our first week of clinicals, we already had a resident pass. But soon as you hit that bottom, you go to the top and you say, I put cream on her legs every day. I took care of her sores every single day. I gave her a shampoo. We washed her eyes and her face, and we brushed her teeth in her last days. So I would want someone to treat me with the same dignity that Robert, Caitlin, and I gave to Mrs. K. I went out on a high today. I said goodbye to everyone. And I said goodbye to the nurses. I went and told Brittany, I said, Brittany, you're an amazing instructor. I thanked Rose for her work. And I feel like this was an amazing week. What's next? I have a state exam about 9 days from now. I need to study. So a lot of the materials, my study cheat sheets, I will be going through those, which is what the teacher told me to do. I'm going to Google Kansas State CNA practice exam and take a bunch of those. It's about a 2-hour exam. I think it'll probably take me about an hour. If I don't pass, they will give me a second and a third chance. And I hope to see some of you in a facility soon. I'll give you a report on my state exam. Hey guys, so I've got big news. I did the exam. I was more nervous than I should have been. The 5 or 6 questions that I was uncertain about, I went over them, with tooth and comb, I don't know, 5 times. There were about 3 or 4 people in my class who finished before me. I think I was the second or third last to do it. This feels good. Let's check out the details. I passed. I made it. I hope you've enjoyed this experience. I'm an official CNA. Thank you. Thank you for coming on this journey. If you're thinking about it, send me a message, leave a comment, go listen to the podcast, ltcheroes.com. Send me a message. I'd love to jump on the phone with you and hear about your journey. Oh, so this book is really, really good. Fast Facts for the Long-Term Care Nurse, What Nursing Home and Assisted Living Nurses Need to Know in a Nutshell. Way more than I needed for the exam, but I really enjoyed this. So if you want a high-level view, good, and reach out to me and I'll give you the human level view.